Democrats just blindsided by Congress, orders investigation into their dirty secrets. Turn around is fair play. I was an adult before I ever heard, or at least before I heard and took note of, that saying. I was more of a what's good for the goose is good for the gander kinda guy. But they both mean the same thing. I discovered the rules that apply to me also apply to thee. There are, let me say, limits to the application of this axiom. Not everything is allowed under color of so-called political warfare, or just because the other side does it. Blood sport is not automatically legitimized merely because it's carried out in the pay of winning an election or cause. It is undeniably true, however, that when partisans take a particular tack against their ideological adversaries or inconvenient opposition, those decisions often can come back to bite them and should. King David, who knew a thing or two about facing ruthless antagonism from others, once penned these words: "They have prepared a net for my steps, they have dug a pit before me, into the midst of it they themselves have fallen." Psalm chapter 576. Well, looks like some falling into the net they laid might be on the way for the Democrats who aimed to ruin Brett Kavanaugh's life. BPR's Tom Tillison has this to say: while the media is all over Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, uncovering scandalous actions like he once threw ice at someone in a bar, there seems to be no intellectual curiosity on their part to how accuser Christine Blasey Ford's letter was leaked. A letter that was in the possession of Senator Dianne Feinstein, D. Califf, chief architect of the 11th-hour ambush of Kavanaugh, who may now have reason to be nervous. Republicans plan to investigate Feinstein's office to determine whether they leaked Ford's confidential letter, according to Senator Tom Cotton, R.Arch. Feinstein has denied that she or any of her staff is responsible for the letter getting out to the press. Feinstein did push back against the GOP on the news her office will be investigated in a statement released on Monday. President Trump and Senate Republicans are trying to deflect attention from Brett Kavanaugh's sexual assault allegations by saying my staff or I leaked the letter from Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. They're wrong, said the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. Feinstein. President Trump and Senate Republicans are trying to deflect attention from Brett Kavanaugh's sexual assault allegations by saying my staff or I leaked the letter from Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. They're wrong. I honored Dr. Blasey Ford's request for confidentiality, Feinstein added. It was only when reporters were knocking on her door that I referred the letter to the FBI. At no point did I or anyone on my staff divulge Dr. Blasey Ford's name to press. She then tried to flip the narrative, inaccurately saying that she was criticized for not releasing the letter she held all throughout Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings. I find it interesting that the same critics who last week condemned me for not releasing Dr. Blasey Ford's letter against her wishes are now suggesting I did leak the letter, Feinstein stated. Feinstein: I find it interesting that the same critics who last week condemned me for not releasing Dr. Blasey Ford's letter against her wishes are now suggesting I did leak the letter. Throughout this process I acted in strict accordance to the wishes of the survivor. But the criticism was more specific to informing the Judiciary Committee of the very serious accusation to allow it to be properly investigated, instead of springing it at the last moment. During his appearance on CBS Face the Nation, Cotton said Democrats betrayed Ford. She has been victimized by Democrats on a search and destroy mission for Brett Kavanaugh. Oh, by the way, now that Democrats have the FBI investigation they wanted, they're calling for it to be expanded, all of which proves there's no winning with this cabal. The White House must not limit the FBI's investigation into Brett Kavanaugh. All allegations of sexual assault should be investigated and relevant witnesses interviewed. The investigation should be about truth, not cover for Republican votes to confirm. A preacher I particularly like shared a story one time about his grandmother's incurably sunny disposition. Grandma, I believe you could even find something positive to say about the devil, he chided her one day. Well, she replied, his is persistent, isn't he? I often reflect on those words when contemplating the political and cultural left. They simply do not give up. If they can't win at the ballot box, they aim at victory by shanghaiing the courts, local, state or federal. If they can't shoot down a Supreme Court nominee via attacks on his judicial record or views, they switch tactics to directing scurrilous and dubious charges against him. Hey, whatever it takes, right? But just because Democrat begins with AD doesn't mean determination should be their sole preserve. I mean, Republican and resolution also kick off with the same letter as well, right? Turn around is fair play. Again, whatever it takes is not a standard which decent people embrace, there are limits on what honor permits. Still, when the anti-American, anti-liberty, anti-God ranks of modern progressivism begin playing political hardball, it's often time for those opposing them to hold them to their own set of rules, and not back off. It's certainly not a call to throw in the towel, to surrender to the inevitability of it all. That's exactly what the forces arrayed against a judge who, by all trustworthy indicators, is a decent man, Brett Kavanaugh, were counting on. They count on it regularly, hoping to wear out those who stand in their way. That option principled persons cannot permit to happen. So, in this case, the scoundrels among Senate Democrats, and that comprises an awful lot of people, wanted to take Brett Kavanaugh and his boosters through the investigative wringer. It's time to subject some of them to the same. The White House must not limit the FBI's investigation into Brett Kavanaugh. All allegations of sexual assault should be investigated and relevant witnesses interviewed. The investigation should be about truth, not cover for Republican votes to confirm.